In this video, we're going to talk about assignments and all the different features that you can use in them. So I'm going to go into this assignment, which I just created, and I'm going to actually look at the different settings that I can do. And this is different than the settings on the grading scheme where I can choose, am I allowing retries? Do I give partial credit? So this is actually a whole different set of settings. So, going through, we created our assignment. It's of the homework type, so the web-based type, not the learning module in this case. But you'll notice that the first three fields that I get are the start date, the due date, and the solutions date. I've gone over this in another video, but this is when this first date is when students can start their assignment. This is when the assignment is due and they're no longer able to submit answers. Here is where the instructor version of the correct solution is shown, how to work the problem. Again, this one doesn't have to be filled in. But there are other options here. So if you wanted to go over and change the default value of 10 points per question for all of the questions in this assignment, this is a great spot to do it. You can go in after the fact into each individual question and change the point values, but this is how you do it overall. It's quick, pretty easy, pretty painless. The other one that's kind of useful, so maybe you have participation credit given for your class. This checkbox will make it so this particular assignment does not have participation credit applied to it, so you can override that credit. If your questions are not randomized, but you want them to be for a particular assignment, you can go here, click this little box, and if you wanted to show your assignment one question at a time, so kind of in the slide view, similar to a learning module, you can actually check this box and it'll show up. Most of the time, these are kind of special cases of things that you can do, and it's pretty limited use, but we give you that option just in case you want to change around what your standards are that you put in the grading scheme. There is the optional class instructions, and this is actually pretty useful. So if you have special instructions you want to give to your class other than giving them just the straight PDF, this is a nice place to do it. If you actually look on this page, look below the video, you'll actually see a few little tricks of what you can set. You can actually have the name of the student print off, so if they print off their assignments, you have their name on their sheet. You can print off their EID. There's a couple of different things you can put in. One thing you want to be careful is be very careful with dollar signs. So dollar signs are reserved for putting in tech, kind of like LaTeX, but tech. So if we wanted to put equations in, sometimes people put useful equations or useful constants in their assignments. This is a great spot for it, but you want to make sure that when you're using the dollar signs, you're actually using the dollar signs for tech and not as indicator of US currency. So be careful how you put things in. It's not that hard to figure out. If you have problems publishing your assignment and you put in optional assignments, optional class instructions, you may need to change around how this happens. This is a common problem, is that if you screw up how your dollar signs are in here, or you try to put special characters in this optional class instruction field, sometimes that does not allow the assignment to be published. So this would be the first place we would look if you ask us for help on it. So kind of nice little features. I want to go over and actually look at a learning module and look at the options for a learning module because they are a little bit different. So I'm going to go into the settings again on either of these two areas. Again, title you can change after the fact, your start date, due date, solution date, your default points, your default participation credit. These are all great. There are extra options for learning modules, like what is the slide layout for questions? Are they side by side? Are they over? Or are they kind of this one column with all the questions within a row of answers? The very last slide, the results slide, will tell you you can actually trigger to either go to a passing results slide or a failing results slide. This is the value that they have to get, the score that the students have to get to go to one or the other. There's actually the ability to put in a time limit on learning modules, which is sometimes useful for kind of take-home tests. You can give them a week to do their test, but once they start the test, you can maybe only give them 60 minutes. So anytime during that week they can go in, but as soon as they start it, they have 60 minutes to start and finish it. This is a little bit of a dangerous one to use. I would probably, unless you have a very specific reason you want to, students not understanding how this works is sometimes an issue for instructors. So if you do use this, I would put on that very first slide, and I would tell them in class, give them handouts, letting them know that this is going to be the case. I do not believe that the timer starts until they hit the second slide. So that introduction slide, they're free to hit, but it's the second slide. When they get to the first content, real content slide, or the first question slide, this is when the timer starts. Ability to try different versions of the question. So sometimes the students will want to try something again, and it'll, kind of like the custom review, it'll re-ask the question. Slide navigation is kind of an interesting one. So do we allow over in the side on the right, either up on the top of the slide or at the bottom of the slide, there's some arrows to go forward and backwards. The forward slide is always going to be there if normal is checked, but it will only show up if the students complete or attempt the question. So they might have to, in order to move forward, they might have to attempt a question first before that button will show up. If you really want to share with your share the learning module, you can actually tag the learning modules. Unfortunately, there's no search engine that covers the learning modules right now. Some questions, some of the simple HTML multiple choice questions have hints on it, so you can actually turn the feature on. The students will be able to see a nice little button, if this is the case, that says show me a hint, and when they do, they will be penalized not at all for it, so they can get these for free. Not a lot of questions have it, but if you have a question or you wrote a question with a hint, this is the field for it. Again, there is that overview field here where you can put the optional instructions in. Most of the time this shows up on the first page. The advanced options, you can actually put JavaScript, or if you have a CSS file, you can really change around the design of the learning module. I would not play with this unless you know at least a moderate amount of what web design looks like. But if you wanted to play around with it, there is a way to put in CSS here, or to call a CSS sheet from a file stored on a public server. The other one that I skipped is this test mode. And the test mode is actually kind of a nice one because it'll allow for online testing of your students. Your students can go through it. And what it does is if you hit the test mode, actually you'll notice that some of these things changed. You'll notice that there's no solution anymore, but there is now a date, or the date the grades are viewable by the students. So you can give an online test. It hides the correct and incorrect answers. So they're only allowed one shot at the question. And they can go through it. So you can actually do asynchronous testing online with this, with the caveat that you probably, unless you have a specific testing center, your students are on web pages and they could actually bring up new pages, try to search online for their answer. So some people find these all useful, other people not so much. Most of the time people will just use the default values, not change a lot, and things work pretty well that way, but if you wanted to, here are some more additional options. I did not cover that there's additional options on each of the slides where you can change things, or in each of the questions. I encourage you to explore that on your own. A lot of them are overriding it for an individual slide, so the slide layout you can change on a question-by-question basis. You can change the point values on a question-by-question basis, where this one changes it overall. So hopefully you learned some stuff. Hopefully this is helpful for you. If you have any additional questions, as always, feel free to contact us. And thanks for watching.